Hey, put that down. Put that down, please.
Can I eat
Hey,
it?
put that down.
Mama, can we go outside?
Give me just a second. Give me just a moment, okay? I'm just folding this up. I'm folding up your blankets. I'll be right there. Look, I almost have this corner clean. You just gotta hold on a second, okay? Just give me a second. Just hold on. Just raise your right hand if you've been there before. Parenting is hard. Parenting alone is even harder. In today's video, I want to talk to you about some relatable challenges that I imagine many of you have been through, like trying to fold laundry while your toddler keeps unfolding it, like trying to recover from an illness while also taking care of your energetic baby, toddler, kid, or trying not to erupt when your patience is running this thin, like you saw at the beginning of this video. I'm not just going to be talking about it. I want to provide you with some tips and advice, some things that I have learned along the way that have genuinely helped me. Now, I know that you don't have a lot of time, so let's go ahead and get into it. And remember that I always put the chapters down below in the description so that you can just watch what is most relevant to you or most important. The first thing that has helped me a lot here is just trying to accept the fact that my place is never going to look as clean and organized as it did before having a baby. Now, I still struggle a lot here. This is really hard for me because I like to have a clean place. My son deserves cleanliness, even though he's the one who makes it dirty. Don't worry, it was just a joke. In reality, your place is just not going to look as well kept as it did when you were still a single person who did not have any kids. But the more that you learn to accept that fact, the more that you will be satisfied and feel accomplished with what it is that you're able to do day to day when it does come to the household chores. The second piece of advice that I want to give you that has also helped me is just handling what you can, focusing on what is necessary, what needs to be picked up and cleaned now versus what can wait until later or tomorrow. If your toddler just got done eating and there's food all over the floor, sweep it up, mop, vacuum, whatever it is that you need to do to get it cleaned up, because we all know that as soon as your kid hits the ground running, that mess is going to spread like wildfire all over the place. So that's something that you would want to get picked up right away. That's a main focus, but there are some other things that you do not necessarily need to deal with right away. If you're anything like me, it probably makes you feel really off balance to only have a small section of the floor that is swept and mopped or vacuumed, and you feel like, well, if I did this little part, I need to go ahead and just do the whole thing, because it feels off balance to us. But in reality, that just isn't true. Just deal with the mess and don't worry about the rest. If you have time, if your kid is distracted enough, sure, go ahead and do it. But if that's not the case, you don't need to worry about it or stress. The third thing is to try and remember that there is a difference between disorganization and true uncleanliness. Disorganization is when your kid has stuff everywhere, when maybe you just have stuff everywhere, when objects are not back in their home, they're not in drawers, they're not in closets. That is disorganization. True uncleanliness is filth. It's
nasty.
It's things that smell, that grow bacteria, that are truly unhealthy for both you and your child. So putting that more into perspective, you can focus your energy appropriately. Trust me, there are many a days when I look around at my place and think,
Oh my God, it's so messy. I can't stand to even open my eyes. I'm never gonna have a clean place again. This is filthy.
In reality, it's actually just disorganized and it's not really dirty at all. Remember that disorganization is something that you can handle here and there, but true dirtiness, filthy, needs to be dealt with as soon as possible. This one is really painful for me because I am just coming off of having 2 back-to-back illnesses. I hope that you can't tell, but I am still really congested. I have been fighting my ass off. The first round of viruses happened a week before Thanksgiving. Both my son and I were sick. And then the second virus was thankfully just me. My son did not get sick the second time around. Being sick as a parent, especially as a single parent, it's just not normal. That's honestly the best way for me to describe it. It is not normal to be ill and have to take care of someone who is so dependent and needy. It just isn't normal. You don't have time to rest, you don't have time to recover, and all of your illnesses for the most part are so prolonged because of that. It's not normal. But the world doesn't stop for nobody, so we gotta keep surviving like the badasses that we are. The first tip that I'm going to give you is to keep the essentials on hand in stock. The worst thing in the world is to have to go to the store when you're sick, when your kid is sick, or when you're both sick. So keep medicines on hand, the ones that you know that you're gonna need to use for both you and your kid or your children. Keep hydration on hand, whatever it is that you like to drink. Kinder Light, Pedialyte, those are probably more for the kids. Body Armor, Gatorade, water. Make sure that you have plenty of fluids on stock because you know that you will need those when any of you get sick. If you have a certain special tea that you like to make, like for me, for example, I like to make garlic, ginger, lemon, and honey tea, so I make sure that I have those ingredients during this time of year. Also make sure that you have some easy to make food for both you and your kid for during times when you are not feeling well. The second tip that I have for you, it's really easy to wallow in self-pity when you're sick, but try to remember that it is temporary, it is not going to last. During the first round of illness that I had, starting the week before Thanksgiving, I was with a fever for 2 days, so was my son, and then we both just didn't have any energy at all for 4 days. I had absolutely no one to help me. It was horrible. And then 2 weeks later, I got sick again. I was actually so sick that I called an advice nurse to ask her what her thoughts were on my situation, and she recommended to me that I go to the emergency room. So at 8:30 at night, I took my 14-month-old son and myself to the emergency room. They put us in a room, and the majority of the time I spent chasing my 14-month-old around. I swear, the things that you think about after becoming a parent, I'm like, when you're an adult and you come into the emergency room, if you have a toddler or a baby, I feel like they should have to treat you on the pediatric side, because being treated on the adult side with a toddler was a disaster. He was trying to get into everything, every which way. It was just, I can't rest. I couldn't rest. It was just chaos. They did stick me with an IV. And every time I had to pick up my son for whatever reason, if I was trying to prevent him from accidentally hurting himself, or if he wanted me to hold him, if he wanted to be soothed, it hurt so bad. It hurt so bad to have a needle on the inside of my elbow and picking up this 23-pound toddler all at the same time. It was just, I had an out-of-body experience. That was the only way I could survive, was just to completely check out of myself. When my test results were done, they directed us to go to another area to wait. It was a waiting area for test results. It was separate from the lobby, but another waiting area, because they wanted the room to be free for someone else. And at this point, it was 11:30 at night. We had been there for a few hours. He was exhausted. It was way past his bedtime. He was grumpy. I think that he was overstimulated and just wanted to crash, but he couldn't. So he was not a happy guy at all. And the only way for me to soothe him was to hold him and do the mom sway back and forth. I was in so much pain. I cannot tell you how bad it hurts to have to hold on to a toddler while you have a needle on the inside of your elbow. It was just not normal. My point in telling you all of this is to tell you that although this was an awful experience and I do not want to relive it, I recognize that it was temporary. This was a temporary situation that I overcame, that I got over. And the point is that there are a lot of days that are going to be like that. There are days that are hard, that are exhausting, that really just test you. But there are so many more happy days, and that's what really matters. Consider the big picture. And then there's the emotional side, like what you saw at the beginning of this video. It can be very hard to not lose control and to not lose patience, especially when your kid is being extra clingy. When it does happen, as in when you do sometimes lose patience, try to remember that you're a human being and it is impossible to have control over your emotions 100% of the time. With that being said, you do not want it to be a regular habit that you explode on your kid every time they get really clingy or they don't listen or they're pushing boundaries. We are the adults and our kids need us. My first piece of advice to you is to practice grounding exercises. Now, I know that for some of you, this is going to sound kind of ridiculous and corny, and you're gonna think, does that even work? Just try it and see for yourself if it's something that ends up being useful. The point of grounding exercises is to draw you back and reconnect you with reality when you are getting overwhelmed, overstimulated, stressed, and anxious. I'm gonna start with the one that probably is going to look really ridiculous, but I promise you that this really has worked for me when I have felt like I'm at the end of my rope. When you feel like you are at the point where you might lose your shit, tap between your eyebrows on your forehead, close your eyes, and take deep breaths. This helps to refocus, I promise. I know that it probably looks funny, but it's a way for you to ground yourself and to be distracted by the stress, the overstimulation, and being overwhelmed. If that just looks way too wacky for you, or if you've tried it and you know that it doesn't work, then here are some other tips for you. Other grounding techniques include counting backwards, focusing on your immediate environment, like finding all of the red objects in the room, repeating a favorite quote or phrase to yourself, and envisioning a calming scene like the ocean or forest. Something else that has really helped me a lot when my son is very clingy and very fussy is to actually just pick him up and hold him. It feels really nice for us to have a moment where he's needing attention and comfort and I'm needing to just bring myself back down because I'm up here. So just holding him and embracing him and having a moment together really has helped to center me several times. And the other part of that that has been helpful and useful is that after I'm done hugging him for 10 to 20 seconds and I put him back down, if he continues to fuss, I have an easier time expressing and also not feeling as guilty, just saying, I already held you for a few moments and now I just need to focus on this. I gave you some attention, now let me do this. Lastly, practice being nice to yourself. I think that one of the main reasons, if not the number one reason, why we are so stressed as single parents is because we don't have any help. We're running on low battery virtually all of the time, and we don't even have another person to pass our kids to while we do something as simple as shower. Seriously, practice talking to yourself in the same way that you would talk to a friend who is in the same situation. If you had a friend who called you distressed and was telling you that they were overwhelmed, they were so stressed, they didn't know what to do, they just needed someone to talk to, they got home from work, they realized that they forgot to wash the dishes from last night's dinner, so they had to do that before they could start cooking dinner. Then the whole time that they were cooking dinner, their kids were pestering them. Then when they finally sat down to eat, they threw their food everywhere. Now there's a mess. Now they have to clean that up, and now they have these dishes to wash. I mean, what would you say to your friend in a situation like that when they feel like they're really broken? Maybe feel like they're kind of at the point where they're gonna have a nervous breakdown. I mean, it doesn't sound like much when you're just describing one story, right? But you know that when you live this on a regular basis, it adds up and it's a lot. What would you say to your friend? Would you say,
well, just do better. Well, just stay positive. Kids aren't trying to be annoying.
I imagine that you would probably say something to the effect of, you know that you're doing your best and your best isn't going to be 100% every day. Sometimes your best is going to look like 40% of what you can give. And that is just enough. None of us are perfect parents, but we are providers, we are caretakers, we are the ones who are here for our kids. We are the ones who feed them, bathe them, put a roof over their head, and take care of their emotional needs all on our own. We deserve to be nice to ourselves. It's a cruel world out there, so why would you be cruel to yourself? We already get enough of it out there, and we need to be nice to ourselves to demonstrate to our kids how to love themselves, how to treat themselves, how to be nice to themselves, because that way they don't go looking desperate for somebody else to fill that void. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this was helpful to you. Drop down some of your tips and advice in the comments below. Let everybody else know what it is that you do to survive and thrive as a single parent. And I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.